Hello, my crafty friends. Well, today we are going to play around with another masking technique. And this particular technique allows you to create a grid-like pattern on your cardstock. Hi, it's Lynn Dunn from Stamptastic Designs. Thanks so much for joining me today. In this episode of Stamptastic TV, I have 4 different card ideas that I want to share with you that feature the Retiform technique. So this particular technique enables you to add color blocks similar to what I shared in a previous video, except for these color blocks do not have any space in between them. So the color blocks kind of butt up against each other and there's no white space in between. So it's just kind of a fun way to add color and stamped images to your card front. Now, the cards in this video feature a couple of different stamp sets. I'm using images from the Country Birdhouse and the Wildflower Designs stamp set. However, keep in mind you can use any stamp set and any images that you have on hand. I am also using some of the new in colors. So for most of the cards, I'm using Summer Splash, Petunia Pop, and Peach Pie. There are a couple of cards where I added the Pretty in Pink, but for the most part, I used just 3 different colors. So we'll start out with a card design like this, and I'll just forewarn you that as you use this technique, each card will be a little different. It just depends on how you place your masking paper. So I'm going to show you how to make a card similar to this. So you're going to start with a piece of white cardstock, and you can make it any size you want. I chose a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece for my card, but you can make it smaller. And the first thing I'm going to do is use some early espresso ink, and I'm going to stamp my focal point. So I'm going to start by stamping just a small floral image, just kind of right in the center. And then I'm going to add my greeting right next to it. So now we're ready to add the color blocks. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some Post-it notes to add different blocks of color. So the Post-it notes have, of course, that sticky side, and so it won't pull up the cardstock when you place it on here and remove it. So we want some kind of mask, and Post-it notes seem to work really well, where we can just lay them on there and add our blocks of color. So I'm going to start with some Summer Splash, and basically I'm just going to add color on this part of the cardstock. And then once you add the color, then you take early espresso or black ink, whichever you prefer, and we're going to stamp some images. So I'm just going to use some of the images from the Wildflower Designs stamp set. So we'll just add this one here, and then we'll add some smaller ones kind of on each side. And then you can just peel off this piece and you have your first color block. So I'm going to add the same type of color, same type of block over on the other side. So I'm basically just going to mask off my image, and I'm going to bring back that Summer Splash, and then we'll just add color to this side. And then I'm just going to flip my design around and we'll add some stamped images. And that is what it looks like so far. And now we're just going to add additional blocks of color. So this time I'm going to run a block of color up this direction. So I want to place my paper right next to that stamped flower that I have for my focal point. And then I'm going to add an additional piece of this Post-it note, or an additional Post-it note, just to cover up what I had already added color to. And this time I'm going to use Peach Pie. So we're going to switch up the colors, and we will add some color to this block over here. And then once you add the color, then you're ready to add the stamped images. So you bring back in that early espresso ink, and we will just add a couple of images on this section. And then this time I'm gonna add a little bit of a splatter image. So this image I got from the Country Birdhouse. I like the look of the splatter, it just kind of fills in some of those spots. And then you can take off your mask, and then you have your color added to that side. And of course, we're gonna do the same thing on this side. So we'll just reuse these masks, lay them down, cover up the spots that you don't want any ink. And then you go ahead and you add your color. And then we will flip this around, and I'm gonna add my stamped images. So this time I'll just add one, and then we'll add a little bit of the splatter. And so you basically just repeat this process, and you keep adding little blocks of color until you've filled it in the way you want to fill it in. So now I'm gonna fill this one in on an angle. So I'm gonna add my paper right across here, and then we'll cover this up. And then we'll bring in one more Post-it note, and we'll just lay it over this little section here. Then we're gonna use Petunia Pop, and we will add some color to this section. Now we're ready to add some stamped images. And then we can just peel these off. And we have another block of color. And then this last one will just go right across the bottom here and do the same kind of thing. All right, so now we're just gonna peel off these masks, and we should have the 3 different colors blocked off really nicely on this piece of cardstock. And then you can just, throw these away or reuse them. So that is what our little masking looks like with the Retiform technique. So now you can simply add this to a card base. I chose to use basic black. You can use any color that you want, but I thought the basic black just kind of drew out the images and the greeting very nicely. And that is just a fun and simple way to use your stamped images and add different blocks of color. And you can do the same thing on the inside of the card. You can add some little blocks of color on the inside of the card to decorate it as well. Okay, and the second way that you can use this technique is simply to block off a section for your greeting and add the blocks of color, either above or below it. So that's what I did here. So I'm going to show you how I created this card. So for this card, I started with the same size piece of cardstock. It's 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And this time I just cut down one of the Post-it notes to 1 3/4 inches wide. You can make this as wide as you want. I could have made it a little bit smaller. And basically I'm just gonna put this right across the center of this cardstock, and then I'm gonna create my blocks of color above and below it. So I'm simply gonna leave this white space here in the middle, so that'll be covered up by the mask. And then you can stamp your greeting or other images in this white space if you wanted to. So this time I decided to use my little Post-it notes kind of on an angle. So I went from the corner to the corner where this masking paper is, or where the Post-it note is. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add this little Post-it note right across here on an angle. And then we will add some color. So I'm going to start again with the Summer Splash, and we will just add some color across this top section. And then once you have your color added, then you can go ahead and stamp your images. So again, I'm using Early Espresso ink, and I'm just gonna stamp a couple images. And then you can just peel that mask off, and then you can cover that section up. So now we're ready to add some color to this section and some stamped images. All right, and then we just peel that off to reveal that. We're gonna leave this mask on, and what we're going to do is go from corner to corner on the bottom now. So we're gonna go back to the summer splash, and we're just gonna add this on the bottom. And now we can bring in our stamped images. Now let's add the mask and cover this section up. And now we're ready to add our final color. So I am going to bring in some Petunia Pop in this section. And then let's add our stamped images. All right, so let's peel this to reveal it. And that is what it looks like. So it leaves a really nice white space in the center to stamp a greeting. And then you have these color blocks and images on the top and bottom of that white space. And then here's what the finished card looks like. And again, you can add whatever you want to embellish it, whatever you want to put in that white space. I just left a little greeting in there since we have lots of different images in the blocks of color. Okay, so these are the two cards that I showed you how to create. So notice how the orientation, this one is landscape style, this one is portrait style. So you can easily use this layout in portrait style if you want. And the same thing with this layout, you can use this layout in landscape style instead of portrait style. So there's lots of possibilities with this particular technique. Okay, so there you go. Now you have different card ideas and just some fun ways that you can create a different grid-like pattern on your cardstock. And if you enjoyed these card ideas, feel free to download the printable tutorial. You can find the link in the description below this video. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know by liking it and sharing it with your friends. And leave me a comment below to let me know what you enjoyed most about the video and the cards shared here today. Have a fun and creative day, my friends. Take care.